And welcome back to The Big Question. It's time for our interview. Of course, we're focusing on corruption. Please do get in touch with us 22422 or use the hashtag The Big Question. We'd love to hear from you. I'll reintroduce my panel to you. Muthoni Kimani is the director of the Assets Recovery Agency, previously the Deputy Solicitor General, of course, still vested in the Attorney General's office. And Irungu Houghton is the Associate Director for the Society for International Development, a member of the civil society. I thank you both for being with us this evening. Let's start by listening to President Kenyatta today, a visibly angry president, as he spoke helplessly on corruption.
What do you want? To go and set up a firing squad at Uhuru Park so that people can be happy? Are we not a country that respects the rule of law? What does the rule of law mean? The rule of law means that those who are accused will get justice, and those who are guilty will pay the price. Who releases people on bond here every day? Who does? Sininyinyi. What does that got to do with me? What does it got to do? I don't even have power, like I said, to appoint you or to sack you. So, mnataka nifanye nini jameni? That I have not done.
Irungu, mnataka afanye nini? Let's start from right there.
Thank you very much, Anna. I think, first of all, let me just step back to an earlier bulletin that you had that alleged, or rather that carried the story of one Delphine Brams Christopher, who is allegedly part of a petition that has gone to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, alleging that she gave $100,000 to CS for devolution, Mwangi Kinjuri.
Right.
I'd like to just very quickly respond to that and say that the petition is completely unfounded, baseless, and a piece of fiction. And I'm a bit surprised that citizens should run it.
On what basis do you say that?
Well, Delphine does not exist. There are a number of things. First of all, in the paper which I have now seen, she does not give her identity card. She doesn't give her a passport. She doesn't say which organization she works for. She claims she's worked in the sector for 7 years. I've worked in the sector for 20 years. And I have never met anybody by the name of Delphine Bram Christopher. Secondly and lastly, she claims that she was in a meeting with the Cabinet Secretary, in which I was in, on September the 9th. And that is patently not true. That meeting was a public meeting. I think the citizen cameras were there. And I find it very strange that you should carry the story.
There was no such person in the meeting. However, it is of public record filed with the EACC.
Who filed it?
Well, the EACC has confirmed receipt of that.
Yeah, but who filed it?
I don't want us to get into that debate.
Okay.
Nonetheless, your point is noted, and certainly this is something that will evolve very publicly on the news. Those are your comments regarding that meeting, and they've been duly noted. But nonetheless, still centering around corruption.
Yeah,
what do you feel the president can do? He says he's done all he can.
Well, I think, first of all, we need to recognize that the war against corruption is a vicious battle. And this petition that has just been circulating is really part of that attempt to prevent a transformation of the NGO sector by the Cabinet Secretary, and in particular to commence the PBO Act. And I'll dispense with this in a minute, but because you gave it so much airtime, I thought it's important to respond. So it is a vicious battle that we've got ahead of us.
Can the president do more than he has already done?
The president, I think, has demonstrated political will. He has demonstrated a policy commitment to fighting corruption. So the intention, I think, is very much there. What we saw today was best described, I think, by the chairperson of the NCIC, where he spoke about collective helplessness. And I think that's something that we need to really address. Why is it that we feel this sense of helplessness across the different agencies that are fighting corruption? But more importantly, why do 40 million Kenyans or more feel that we are losing the battle?
Why do you think that is?
I think because we've not seen enough results, we've not seen enough convictions. We are amazed by the staggering numbers of, of billions of shillings that we lose to small cartels. But I think more importantly, why it is happening is because we've not risen up as a country to restore hope that we can have a government that does not allow for the pillaging that we're seeing. The cartels are simply still too strong for us. And I think what...
Do you think cartels have reached the stage where they actually threaten the the instruments of power? Are they holding the government ransom, do you think?
Yeah, 23rd of November, the President himself said this is almost a state of emergency. He said that there is a serious epidemic in this country. I think he calls it the cancer. And I think all of us need to rally behind that vision of a country that is not prey to, I think, just, cartels upon cartels. I mean, if you look at just the law courts, and we spent a lot of time this morning talking about the power of the judiciary and what needs to change there. There is a parallel judiciary that involves a number of people, none of whom are authorized to transact business, but they are moving through the corridors of the justice, paying off journalists, paying off lawyers, paying off judges. And they are a very effective system. And that's what we need to transform.
Muthoni, is that how you see it? You've had vast experience, Deputy Solicitor General, now asset recovery. Is it as Irungu is pointing it out to be?
On my part, I think I see it a little bit different in that what I see today is not a president that is really frustrated. It's a president who is saying, what can we do as government to arrest this situation? He is saying, when you came to me last year as law enforcement, I gave you resources. I want to see results. I want to feel actual effects of what I have put as the resources. We want to see cases which have gone through the justice chain, which have been prosecuted and determined expeditiously. Cases where people who have been taken through the courts have either been convicted or acquitted, but with reasons which Kenyans can understand and accept, that these are cases which are done impartially and by an independent
You're putting right back to the judiciary, but before we get to the...
No, I'm not putting the back on the judiciary.
Sounds like if you're talking about convictions.
No, I have said either convicted or acquittals.
Which are results that can only come from the judiciary.
No, these results are from the judiciary, but through a justice chain, where there is a prosecution that has gone on and concluded. This is judiciary only determines.
The Attorney General today said it is not true. Basically, I'm paraphrasing him. He said it's not true that it's, the entire system is broken, that there is a weakest link, and that weakest link is the judiciary. Is that your own assessment?
I think what we have to look at is what we have. How is that chain? How is it operating? Right from the investigation to prosecution to the judiciary. And when we look at that chain is when we will identify where is the problem. Is it the technology? Is it the handwritten proceedings? Or is it the witnesses that do not come to court? Or is it the prosecutor who is incompetent? Or is it the investigator?
You've been in the justice system long enough. What is it to you? Where is the weakest link for you?
Coming from my side right now, every institution is vulnerable in terms, because we were working individually, but when we started working as the multi-agency, we recognized that it's a shared responsibility. It is a responsibility where we have to seal the loopholes, so we have a seamless investigation right up to prosecution. Then when it comes to hearings, that is before the judiciary, then that can be concluded expeditiously. We haven't reached there, but we are getting there. We have some cases which are going through this system, but as you know, when you start something, it's never smooth sailing. When you're transiting from one process to another, it's always challenged, and that is what we're addressing today.
Well, Irungu, why do you think it is that the war against corruption never really, it kicks off, but it never gains flight or speed or impetus or yields results? Why do you think that is?
I think we're up against a system, a systemic set of relationships that actually reinforce each other. So I think there are politicians who are essentially enjoying the benefits of public procurement opportunities. If they're not doing it themselves, there are definitely their families are doing this, or they are running legal practices that are representing clients that are doing this. And I think there's a whole range of things that we need to look at. So I think it's two things. One is you have people who are politically connected, and you have a sheer breakdown. I think the second part of this is a sheer breakdown in terms of our values and ethics.
It's the glue that holds us together?
Well, if you take, for example, 5-10 years ago, if you had said to us that we were going to have systemic corruption in the sports sector, in the education sector, the children would refuse to do exams unless they leaked the paper in ahead of, we would have thought that you were painting some kind of Armageddon or some kind of apocalypse. But now we have that.
Is it an apocalypse? It has,
No,
I mean, has it reached, I suppose, essentially what I'm asking is, we've heard various people alluding to the fact that, this is becoming a security situation. Has it reached levels, Muthoni, in your own estimation, that this should be considered a security emergency that would then require, it would prescribe a different approach?
I think in terms of the level of corruption that is there, it can be a security risk, because if a corrupt official has not looked, an immigration official has not looked at the effect of what they're doing in terms of facilitating a terrorist to enter the country, then that's a matter of concern. If a corrupt policeman flags down a vehicle which is carrying terrorist equipment which are going to bomb Kenyans, and he just gets the 50 bob or whatever, what was Macharia talking about, and has not looked inside there, just to close the eyes, but to look at that small benefit, then it can be a security risk. And this is why we are saying that all the agencies are working together in terms of fighting and curbing these incidences of corruption. Because if we don't work as one government, then the criminals enjoy it. Criminals, this is white collar, this is organized crime. They enjoy the fact that I can come and tell the police the prosecution is against you, or the EACC is against you. So they enjoy themselves.
Working together but not yielding results.
Well, let me tell you something about corruption. Corruption is complex.
Simplify it for us.
Corruption is a happy crime.
What do you mean by that? A happy crime?
Happy crime because, look, the giver is happy, he's gotten whatever he's getting, it's a contract, and the receiver, who happens to be a public official, is very happy. It looks like a victimless crime. Unfortunately, the victims are ultimately the public, who are denied the benefits of the funds that are stolen from them. So what we have to do is really to educate the Kenyans to understand that ultimately they are the victims, and they must be the first police officers to report what they are seeing.
Well, and then you have the situation where a matatu driver reports what he's seen, participated in, and the Inspector General says, hey, I should be arresting you right now. Be that as it may, I want to go back to what you said. It seems victimless. Irungu, you've used the word systemic, and I want to return to my question about it being a security situation, basically to the point that unless we can make it look as ugly as it actually is, with the consequences that it actually yields, then perhaps the requisite action will not be taken. We've been talking about amending laws. Laws have been changed. One wonders how much more legislation can actually do. If it doesn't look and sound, or is not held in law to be as awful as we all believe, well, apparently believe it to be, then can we actually prescribe the right measures? If it was to be taken by perhaps another act of parliament or something, if the president was to invoke something that made it a security risk or situation, do you think that would give the presidency more powers? Would it change the way law enforcement agencies dealt with it?
So my opinion is that we probably have enough laws, maybe in the area of money laundering, new areas like this where we're expanding the legal framework. There may be need for a bit more work, but I think we probably have enough laws. What's missing is decisive action. And the decisive action, if we can take the comments by the President this morning, really is, I think there were some very frank lessons today in terms of what I took away. So some takeaways for me was that the judiciary needs to be much more alert to ensure that we do not see postponement of cases, or judicial reviews of cases, or vexatious petitions by the corrupt to simply slow down the pace of the cases. And I think that lesson probably was explained very well this morning to the judiciary that was there. I think in terms of the prosecution agencies, we heard a great deal about the quality of forensic evidence that's brought to bear. And I think I would take one in terms of the NGO community, that there was a criticism, I think, that was valid, that we perhaps are spending too much time focusing at the national level and need to do a bit more work in terms of the 47 counties and support the county governments and the assemblies to be able to create a real intolerance, a zero tolerance for corruption. So I think I took away 4 or 5 practical steps that could be taken. The media, I think, was extremely well represented by the Media Council today. And I think Roch spoke very well about what's needed in the media to ensure that you don't see what do they call it?
Brown envelope journalism?
Well, we used to call it developmental journalism. Now it's environmental journalism.
Is it? Environmental? Envelopmental.
Yes, from the envelope.
The envelope determines the story.
Absolutely. So I think these are some of the things that are practical. I would, I hope this morning's conversation left Kenyans with a sense of urgency. One of the things that we have to stop as a public behavior is this rallying behind our man or our woman when they are held accountable for actions that they take in their personal capacity as public officers or as state officers. We see too many of our communities rallying around essentially officers that need to take responsibility for what they're doing and don't bring the tribe into that equation. So I think these are some of the things that could happen. So there's a sense of urgency, but I think we shouldn't have a sense of fear. We shouldn't have a sense, talking about it as an emergency should not leave Kenyans feeling powerless or that somehow we are in the grip or we've become some huge detention center. This republic of ours is now a detention center where we are being held hostage by a group of cartels. No, this is actually created by human beings and we can transform this. We just need decisive action. And not necessarily more laws.
What would decisive action and better collaboration look like, Muthoni, between state agencies? Is it a question of structural reform or personnel reform? Overhaul, perhaps?
It's really structural. It's what we were talking about, that from now onwards we'll have like strike forces, where you have one unit. If there's a serious scam, dealing with that scam alone, where you have people drawn from the various agencies working as one team, addressing the issues of evidence collection, addressing the issues of intelligence collection, and addressing the issue of preparing the files together so that we can take them forward for prosecution. That is
and you
really
think that doesn't exist?
Well, because of the laws that we had, we did not have that, but under the multi-agency, that is what we're trying to build. And as I am saying, it's not unique to Kenya to have had its teething problem in terms of trying to set up this multi-agency, one government, one connected law enforcement, which is working together. Because remember, we are all set up by various statutes. We have the Constitution, and we have the various statutes, and we have very powerful laws, as Irungu has said, and more recently the new laws that have come into place, which have new investigative mechanisms and which have new ways of doing business because of the nature of the crimes that we are addressing. Ultimately, all that I can say is that it's corruption that is driving, or no, money laundering is driving all these other crimes, because all of them are predicate offenses. Whether it's corruption, whether it's wildlife trafficking, whether it's drugs, whether it's frauds, whether it's whatever it is, theft. It's ultimately the benefit, and that benefit does not need to be directly accrued to you, the suspect. You can have given it to your associate, your girlfriend, or your wife, or your family, and that's where the law enforcement today is. It's looking at, ultimately looking to take away the benefit or the proceed from crime from the suspects. And that in Kenya, I can say we have very progressive law, because the law is not just like in other countries who are struggling to come up with the civil asset forfeiture, because they are only dealing with criminal convictions, and criminal convictions in common law are not easy. Because it's beyond reasonable doubt, and even technical issues can make the case be dismissed. So we have to really look at which is the best way. We have the laws. Unfortunately, Anne, I can confirm that these laws were enacted, and maybe because of lack of resources, they were not really disseminated to law enforcement, and guidelines were not issued. So what we are working to in the multi-agency is really giving guidelines to law enforcement that this is how to go about the investigation, financial. This is the stage. What is the value of the assets that you're following? What I was talking to Irungu a bit earlier is telling him, don't tell me about lifestyle audit. The simple language is unexplained assets. Unexplained assets which are
how did you end up with this car?
Yes.
Or with this property?
How did you? It's not rocket science. I can't as Muthoni Kimani today be the owner of Garden City Mall. And I mean, we admire Mark Zuckerberg because he's an entrepreneur, and we encourage Kenyans who can be Zuckerberg to do so. But I don't think Kenyans should glorify thieves who are driving big cars.
Should wealth declaration forms be publicly accessed for all state officials?
It's not just about wealth declarations. It's about a whole change in the way we do business. Because those wealth declarations, are they appropriate? That's the first question.
What do you mean by appropriate?
In terms of what are they, do they give you a correct record?
Right.
Do they give you a correct record of what Muthoni Kimani owns? If they don't, is there a shortfall? We need to look at it, relook at it, because we started this on a very good intention, a very good journey, which is not lost. We've made strides, but we need to improve on relooking at all those documents and relooking at the way we do business, and then saying, this is the resolve, and that's what the president was asking today.
Muthoni, you've been on record saying your life has been threatened. How does corruption fight back? It's a catchphrase. Corruption is fighting back. How does it fight back?
And corruption fights back
how?
In very, very many ways. In simple terms, in complicated terms, in all manner of approaches they'll make. What has your own experience been? The experience is that you will get a phone call, you will get even a friend, you will get somebody telling you something is going to happen to you. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Those are the kind of things. It's common knowledge.
Have you had your own personal security increased? Do you have personal security? Do you need personal security?
I'm not sure. Is it appropriate for you to tell us what your security arrangements are?
I think the security arrangements I shouldn't talk about because
I'm simply asking, do you feel that your life is in danger because of the kind of work that you do?
Let me say, like what the Archbishop said, we serve a faithful God who is always present in whatever we do. Because we may have as many policemen, but if somebody wants to take your life, they can always do it, with or without a policeman. So when you're doing good, as the Archbishop Abukala said, when you're doing what is within the law, I think God is always present.
And I just wanted to raise a couple points. The Society for International Development works in an alliance of about 12 organizations that are committed to protecting all our public schools. We have 29,000 public schools across this country. Something like about 83% of those schools don't have title deeds. About 43% of the schools are currently in danger from land grabbing. This issue we have been working on for almost close to 2 years now, and we continue to press for the Ministry of Lands to title schools and therefore give some security to really our country's future. Maybe once a month I meet a head teacher who's probably earning about 50,000 shillings, and in some cases they are overseeing land that is worth probably anywhere above 100 million shillings or 200 million shillings, and I can give you examples: Langata Road Primary School, Lavington Primary School, Maralal, and so on. And I'm always drawn and inspired by their courage. They are not paid to do this work, to protect schools from grabbing. They don't have bodyguards. They don't have hotlines to the presidency. They don't know the telephone numbers of the police that can protect them. But every day across this country, there are ordinary human beings, men and women, who do this work. And really, for those of us who are in this space,
It takes courage?
No, it takes, for me, I'm inspired by those people, right? That's why we have to keep doing this. And, I would hope that one of these days you can bring a couple of whistleblowers onto the, in fact, one of the suggestions I had for the president, but unfortunately he left early. Let's have another summit of whistleblowers.
Now that's an idea. And on that note, we have to wind up our discussion. I thank you both for coming in.
Thank you very much, Anne.
Thank you very much.
We're taking a short break on The Big Question. We're back with the business after this.